it's Euan from GameEngineStart.com. It is a cold October night. I'm here with my fire going in the background, and I've decided to cozy up with the Beginner's Guide, which came out last week, I think. It was announced on Tuesday and came out on the Thursday or something along those lines. Very short announcement to release cycle, which was interesting. I haven't seen any of this. So we're going to go in cold, but I know a little bit about its origins, so we'll see what happens. Let's begin the game. So this is the new game from Davey Redden. I've never known how to pronounce his second name. The developer of the Stanley Parable, which is one of my favourite games of the last couple of years. And they're just getting straight into like, hey, this is all you're going to need. So Stanley Parable is well known for being a kind of commentary on modern video games. Apparently this year's...
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide.
I'll let him talk.
My name is Davey Redden. I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011.
Okay.
We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff. And his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make.
I wonder if Coda is a real person.
Just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way.
Okay, I'm in control now.
And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment.
This is
what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this?
Very good question.
This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here.
So I don't know how long this game is.
It's 2008. Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any. He doesn't put them onto the internet. He just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made. Until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveywreden@gmail.com.
Just straight up giving you his Gmail address?
Interesting. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
This is a lot more autobiographical than I was anticipating, if this is it at all, but we'll find out. So like I said, in case you missed that there, I don't know how long this game is. I know it's not particularly long. I don't want to show too much of it, but I want to give you a taste of what to expect. Already we're very much in the same kind of the commentary angle, because Stanley Parable was very much a commentary. Whoa. Okay, this took a turn.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
So I can shoot. Can I go there? So Stanley Parable was a commentary on video games and their various tropes and the illusion of choice and all that kind of stuff. This seems very much more. Let's have a talk with the people who make the game and how their relationship with the games that they make, which is a really interesting thing. As I'm a programmer, but I'm not a game developer. But I am a.
It kind of looks like this
things.
game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere. But then clearly there are no enemies anywhere.
Oh good, I was
you
worried
can't
there.
even reload the gun when you run out of bullets.
I was about to say there was no reload.
We don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Sounds fair.
Enemy force neutralized.
Yeah, so like as a person who does creative things like designing websites or making YouTube videos, for instance.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Oh yeah. Ha. You do have a weird relationship with the things you make. Like, there's the common thing of like, you think that everything you think you make is terrible. So maybe this is why this Coda person decided that I'm never going to put any of this stuff out.
Apparently the space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Oh, nice. Interesting. So it just took me straight out.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting.
Okay.
The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Interesting use of... I wonder if they're going to go into, like, narrative and all this kind of stuff.
You there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering a whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature.
Okay.
If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it?
Huh.
Would you give yourself?
I mean, you don't really get a choice, right? You can't just walk away. So I assume you'd have to, right? Dead.
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level.
Sure.
But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Like you have a bug somewhere, that's incredibly true. There's a bug somewhere, not even in this room, maybe not even in the thing that handles collision, but there's probably a bug somewhere. Oh. Oh. Huh. Interesting.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
This is already fascinating and a really weird game to try and show because there's going to be a lot of obvious narration from him, but I'm going to try and get in whenever I can. Okay. Past was behind her. Oh.
Yep. In this game, you can only walk backwards.
Huh. So yeah, my W and D keys aren't doing anything, so I have to kind of S. So yeah, there's a big interesting point here about whether the person he's talking about is real or not. Yeah, wow. You can... Oh.
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
So, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I wonder how many games, like from the last thing that they gave, the last example he gave, like how many games come out of experiments to go wrong. Like, hey, maybe what would happen if the floor wasn't there suddenly? Yeah, this is cool.
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that.
Huh.
Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay,
sure.
Next one.
So yeah, it'd be interesting if... So yeah, there's the problem of is Coda real? Because it would be a really useful tool for Reading to... I've already forgotten how to pronounce his name, never mind. For Reading to explain his creative process, whether this is a kind of second person narrative or something like that. It's a really interesting concept. Oops.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
It's interesting. Like, it does feel like you're... In the trailer, they kind of mentioned this.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
The kind of trailer of this game...
I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
The trailer kind of talks about what would you do if you found like a random folder of experiments, which is what this feels a lot like. It just feels like you kind of downloaded a zip file of a bunch of... Ooh.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Press enter. Okay. So there is some kind of editorial oversight coming from Redden at this point. Ooh, what the... Oh, interesting. No game screens. This is like a bunch of
a room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
Huh. Press U to surrender.
Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that.
Or a gate. That's a great idea.
It can be a very slow climb to get there.
Selling your organs strategically to make the most money before you die. That's some cool ideas here. Okay, we're just jumping to following year. Reset fish. I'll go a couple more games and then call this, just so I don't give away too much, but this is already one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. It's kind of... Do you take it face value that this is actually, the story he's telling is actually happened? Is this some kind of allegory? Is it a way of expressing something that's slightly unorthodox? Who knows? But like going by Stanley Parable, I totally believe that
this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
So I can't jump up there. There's just the lever which I can pull. There's a door. This is just a dark room. Can't get through there. Wonder if I can shut myself in here. Seems like the only interaction. So this is kind of reminiscent.
Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're going to see it a lot.
That's very reminiscent of a puzzle from Stanley Parable, actually. Or not a puzzle, it's a kind of secret way to break the game. If you haven't played Stanley Parable, go play it. It's amazing. If you're into video games, it is one of the funniest things you'll probably play. Like, it's up there with Jazz Punk under one of the few games to really make me belly laugh.
Right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Okay. Enter. Whoa! Whoa! That's... interesting.
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world.
That looks cool.
Either way, I think that the point is the same. is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Fair point. Okay, a couple more. We're back here again. I really hope there's no horror games in this, because I don't want to jump on fun.
So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Interesting. Yeah, this is fascinating. It's a really interesting, great love of Descent. Really interesting commentary on like how you. Oh, cool. Like maybe this is what a game designer thinks while they're doing their work. Like how is the.
Let's talk about video game development for a second.
Yes, please.
Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do.
Sure. So
in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development.
Controls crouch. It's normal game control mapping.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
So interestingly, Source was also the engine used in Stanley Parable.
The tools available
Source
to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Strange stock photo art. Lots of like these kind of texture seams that don't quite work. Like it's obviously prototypey, but just cut a chunk out the game. Oh, interesting. Oh, this is like wireframing a game. Weird. Can I jump? I can't jump. Okay. Let's go and see what this is. Again, the kind of greys and oranges were very reminiscent of the original kind of prototype screenshots from Half-Life 2, where because I messed about with the Source engine when Half-Life 2 came out, and the kind of default textures you would get to texture things just as you were kind of blocking levels out were these colours. It was this dark grey, this light grey, and this orange. Let's just kind of drop down, see what's down here. A little bit of motion blur, interesting. Let's try and drop to this platform. Oop. Okay, so no fall damage, so maybe I can just hoop. Oh, nope, nope, nope. Oh, interesting, okay. Looks cool though. See, this is the moment, anytime I play any game, a kind of game like this, I end up kind of overthinking it a little bit, where I look up and you go, does that like spell something if I line it up particularly well? No, maybe not. Okay, let's go see what we've got here. Some nice architecture. Shut me in a cage. Oh. Huh. Where are you taking me? Yeah. I don't want to place bets right now on if this is...
Oh. This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Again, reminiscent of the Stanley Parable puzzle, where
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere.
So yeah, again, the locked door for an hour is reminiscent of the Stanley Parable room where there was like a puzzle where you had to, you would complain through the game that the game wasn't fun enough, and the narrator would send you to a room where you had to keep like a cardboard cutout of a baby out of a fire, and the way you could do it was to mash a button, and you had to mash the button for an hour in order to get that, in order to do that and to get that achievement. And you couldn't script it, like it kept changing the button and moving the buttons. You couldn't just sit there and hammer the thing. You had to stay there for an hour. There's no way around it, there's no cheating it, that was just it. And it was incredible. And once you found out that's what it was even funnier. Never tried it, but it was really, really funny. These 3 dots are appearing quite a lot as well, which is interesting. Here's this puzzle.
It's the puzzle again.
Yeah.
With the exact same solution as the last time.
Interesting. So go here. And there's a switch.
There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Okay. So yeah, this is cool. I am enjoying this. I'm a sucker for this kind of not quite a game narrative driven, what is this thing? Like it feels, this is like a novel to me. This is like a good book where you just kind of immerse yourself and let yourself go with it. I get a lot out of games like this. Oh, conversation. Okay.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
You there? Did you come up from above? What was up there? Enormous prison I spent hours on. That's the world above. You've been there. Did you have to get through a puzzle with 2 doors and switches? Interesting that you can say we've only just met. Yeah, okay, it's literally the last thing I did before going in here. So to get to the other side. I don't remember, or I didn't solve it, or you don't want to go there. I didn't solve it, someone let me in. That was an interesting conversation. Okay. That's gone. Are we using the whole kind of looping level thing from... Did you get here? Was there a puzzle you had to pass through? Oh, it's okay, so we're assuming that... Okay, yes, do you want to know how to solve it? No, we actually find the black space between the doors far more interesting. Have you seen it? Yeah, okay, I'm feeling strange as I pass through it. It's hard about it. You'll see it again soon. That's foreboding. More stairs.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely make this the last one then if we're getting near the end of this. This is so reminiscent of like shells of levels that I've made in like Source and Unreal and all this kind of stuff. It's, I mean, this already looks better than anything I ever made.
It's a lamppost.
Yep.
Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, you know, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
So definitely reinforcing the kind of iteration of creativity, which is something that you learn very quickly when you do stuff like this. Or even just as a programmer, like it's the whole point of that. This game is connected to the internet. This is an interesting concept. Okay, I'm going to leave it here because I will leave the rest of it for you to discover. But this is super cool. So this is the beginner's guide. It is $5.99, I think, currently on Steam. It looks well worth it. I mean, if you look at this based on this video and think this is nonsense, then it's not for you, obviously. But go check out Stanley Parable anyway. It's a little bit less abstract, but more weird in a way. It's great fun. So anyway, yes, thank you for watching. GameAgentsStart.com for the rest of our stuff. The articles and videos and the podcast will all be up there. And more from us soon. Bye bye.